jingle bells, jingle all the... What up, everybody? I'm the Godless engineer, and guess what? It's Christmas time. You know what's a really big importance this time of year? Well, in case you didn't know, here in America, Jesus is a pretty big deal. I mean, this fucker was magical, wasn't he? Could walk on water, he was born of a virgin, and he did a bunch of other cool shit. Well, I'm here to debunk that fucking shit right now. And in this first video, I'm gonna show you how exactly Jesus wasn't fucking born on December 25th. No, he wasn't. Yeah, he didn't exist in the first place, or at least he probably didn't exist, to be more accurate. But what I'm gonna go into depth today is about how it came to be that his birthday is December 25th. It's actually got some really cool stuff behind it.
Engineer, a conscious pioneer, a logic general, a reason brigadier. More bullshit from the pulpit. Meet me in the comment section and you get schooled, bitch. The Godless Engineer.
If you didn't know that Jesus was born on December 25th, or have heard of Jesus at all, you're one of the lucky people. Cause god damn it, if people don't stop fucking talking about him this time of year. Jesus this, Jesus that. This year there's a public school that's doing a live nativity scene. A public school is doing a live nativity scene for a guy that probably didn't exist. And they're treating it like it's history. But did you also know that December 25th is actually the rebirth of Mithras? Do you know who the fuck that is, though? Mithras was first mentioned in the Rig Veda in India. The earliest reference of this is in 1500 BCE. If you didn't know, that's way before Jesus. Mithras was born in Vedic Hinduism and had been an assistant to the high goddess thing person Varuna. Mithras was actually tasked with watching over Pax, which also has a strange correlation in the biblical dogma in Genesis. Eventually, Mithras took his foot and booted his master out of his own house. He pulled a Benedict Arnold, if you will. And, of course, Mithras rose to the important place in this fucking culture. At the same time, this culture was moving from where it was to Persian Zoroastrianism. Basically, Mithras became the big motherfucker in charge. Through a bunch of brand deals and corporations being bought out, chopped up, sold, and everything like that, Mithras eventually became the god of the Roman Empire. And basically it became tradition to celebrate Mithras's rebirth with basically office keggers and shit. Of course, we all know that Mithras is a myth. There's no doubt about that. You're not going to see somebody out there arguing for Mithras as being some fucking real person that actually lived. We know that it was a myth that was completely made up by people. So you gotta ask yourself, why do they celebrate his birth exactly? And why is his birth on December 25th if he never actually existed? How did they come to this date? Well, I gotta tell you guys, it's entrenched in symbolism, in their culture, in their religions, every fucking where, man. Brahmalia was the winter solstice of this area, and of course the solstice is the shortest day of the year. This has symbolic references to Mithras as being a sun god. Pulling from Robert Price's book The Incredible Shrinking Son of Man, we have Price saying this. This meant in mythic symbolic terms that the sun god had spent his force, grown old, and died, sunk beneath the sea on the horizon, and entered his tomb in the caves beneath the earth. And he would arise from there, reborn and rejuvenated on the solstice. Robert M. Price, Incredible Shrinking Son of Man, location 595, Kindle edition. Therefore, December 25th was simply a generic date that was taken that signifies the rising of the newly born sun god. Now, if you want to think that Mithras was a lonely motherfucker and he was, he was out there doing his own thing, no, you would be wrong. There are other gods in this area that actually hold to the whole December 25th being either a birth or a rebirth, and some of those gods would include Dionysus, Adonis, and Horus. They all had December 25th births. Of course, all of these gods range from different areas, including Egypt, Persia, Phoenicia, and Germany. They had their own respective gods in these countries that represented seasonal changes. The setting of the sun and the rising of the new year. It's celebrated across the whole world in an amalgam of different ways, with an amalgam of different gods. To quote Price again right here, pre-Christian Egyptians and Syrians would symbolize the sun as an infant and hold him up before his adoring worshippers with the words, "Behold, the Virgin has brought forth." Robert M. Price, Incredible Shrinking Son of Man, location 599. Now, you may be asking yourself, what the fuck does this have to do with Jesus? I mean, yeah, there's all these different gods that have these same birthdays, but, just because we hold to Jesus being born on December 25th, that doesn't mean that he copied from them. Well, not at first, of course. I mean, at first, they didn't really know when he was born. I mean, it's not like he was born, and then some years later, Christmas was a thing, and, Santa Claus would come down the chimneys of all the little grass huts, and he would give all the little kids presents and whatnot. I mean, the whole Santa myth was developed over several years, if not tens or maybe even hundreds of years. It's not like this happened overnight, like a lot of people make it out to be. There are actually several characters in the biblical dogma that have sun symbolism ingrained in their own character. Now, some of these characters, we don't know whether or not they were real or if they were just merely mythical. We don't have evidence to suggest one way or another. So what we have to go off of is what is actually in the text and how it's connected to this sun symbolism. You guys know about Samson in the book of Judges? He was a bad motherfucker, wasn't he? I mean, he's basically like the Black Hulk is what he was. Or at least that's how he's depicted in most of these religious videos and whatnot. Whether or not you want to believe he was black, white, purple, it doesn't matter. He was a bad motherfucker. But did you know that his name quite literally means the sun? And of course he's just basically a carbon copy of Shamash from Babylon with a little bit of Hebrew thrown on it. The idea that he's this blazing sun, even though the author tried to cover up these references, it is totally rampant throughout his entire story. For example, he does a whole lot of shit with fire, which is also shit associated with the sun. He burns a Philistine grain harvest. His hair is separated out into 7 locks. And, I mean, I know what you're thinking. Awesome dreads, right? Well, wrong. I mean, this would symbolize the rays that are generally depicted coming out of the sun. And, I mean, the reason why we know that that's what the rays mean, the rays, are the sunlight, basically, right? Well, when they get cut off, he's of course blinded and weak. His hair is the source of his power, if you will. And so when he loses his hair, it's like the sun setting. Everything goes black and it's more vulnerable. Everything's more vulnerable. You're more vulnerable. And so you're weaker. Elijah didn't do any better with this whole symbolism thing. Elijah, that motherfucker, he called down fire from the sky. Or, basically Alabama in December. He was more badass than Samson. Do you know how Elijah actually ascends into heaven? Which, by the way, he's one of the only ones in the Bible that does that. But how he actually ascends into heaven is in a fiery chariot. Basically, he rides the sun into heaven. Psst, that's just like Apollo. Enoch likes to pimp walk around with God around the circle in the sky. By the way, circle is a two-dimensional object. When you see that in the Bible, they're talking about a two-dimensional object. The Bible talks about a flat earth, if you're not getting my drift here. And whose lifespan is suspiciously 365 years. Eshua is a red, hairy motherfucker. And this is supposed to really symbolize the sunset, that beautiful red that you get right then. And then this guy also, he wields sunstroked arrows that he hunts with. By the way, That's exactly like Apollo too! Moses, that motherfucker has a lot of sun symbolism shoved up his ass. I mean, this motherfucker doesn't just leave the tent. He doesn't just pimp walk out of the tent. This guy just embarks out of the tent and he just glows. And then, you know what he does? He goes up onto a mountain and then he gets lost from God and he disseminates them to the weaker people. That's just like Hammurabi. His God did it to him too. And of course we get to Jesus. He's got a lot of sun symbolism wrapped up around him. I mean, he shines like the sun's strength, right? And then he's got these 12 brocephs that are around him, which symbolize the zodiac. So, I mean, honestly, it's no wonder that we came to the conclusion that he was born on December 25th. Everything seems to line up with this sun worship, right? With this idea that the season changes. Not only that, but the fact that there are pre-existing religions that use these seasonal changes, use the sun as a way to celebrate these seasonal changes, and they have worked them into their own god myths. That we know that this had a part in the construction of this Christ figure, this Jesus. So no, for those of you out there thinking, no, Jesus was not born on December 25th. And if he was actually a real person and he was actually born, there's no way that we can tell when the fuck he was born, okay? Because there's quite literally no way. I mean, there's no real dates in the Bible for when it existed. It's not like the wise men, rolled up in snowmobiles because it was snowing out there and they were iced in because of course fucking snow. Thank you for joining me today on this Did Jesus Exist? I hope that you will go down below and subscribe if you like this series. Also, don't forget to like this motherfucker, and I'll see you guys next time.